In this video, I simply want to create a new C# project using the dotnet CLI. And we talked briefly about the notion of projects and templates. A project in C# and in dotnet is a collection of all the files, the source files and settings that will ultimately go into creating the end product, the executable file. All right. And so that is called an assembly in dotnet terminology. And a template is a set of files and settings that accelerate the creation of a specific type of project. We looked at some of the templates in the previous video that are available to the dotnet new command. And we noticed that you can create a console application, a web application, a Windows application, and more. Well, in this series, we're going to create console, or I should say, to begin with, we're going to create console applications because they'll be easy and they'll allow us to exercise the language without worrying about a user interface. Eventually, we'll get to the user interface. But let's get started. And I'm going to minimize our slides here. And what we want to do is start off by working in a folder in our source directory that we created in that first GitHub series. So I want to change into the source directory. This is going to be where you put your code, right? We're going to make a new directory, so mkdir, and I'm going to call it hello world, hello-world, no spaces. All right, and if you use this technique, it will make it easier to actually create a new project. There are other ways where you can specify the project name, but I'm going to actually change directories now into hello world. And then I'm going to type in .NET new console. I don't need to give it the name of the project unless I want to change it from hello world. It will just adopt hello-world as the name of the project if I do it this way, okay? If I create the directory first, move into the directory, and then call it using those commands, all right? And a moment or two later, we get our new console application from the template console application, and it does some post-creation actions. It runs a .NET restore, which simply is, since it's giving you a starting point, it needs some files. And if it doesn't have those files locally, it will go up and grab them from a centralized repository called NuGet. I think you have everything you need locally. I don't think it needed to look very far for that, but it's a step that it runs after it actually creates the template. And so now if we do a directory here, you can see that we get two files and a folder. The hello-world.cs project, that's a project folder. It contains some vital settings for building your code into its own assembly, its own executable file. The program.cs is the only C# file where we'll write our code. Now, in a larger application, we could have 2, 5, 10, 100 C# files, depending on how we wanted to split up our code for maintenance purposes or to make it easy to find what we're looking for. All right. And then there's that OBJ folder, which contains, remember I talked about those dependencies and NuGet. It stores a lot of stuff in there, things we might need to build our type of program. We'll never touch it. We'll always leave it alone, and we'll use the .NET CLI to manipulate the stuff in that folder. Okay, so that's good for now. Let's take a look at what this looks like in Visual Studio Code. So I'm going to type in code period, and that will open up Visual Studio Code in that directory so we can see those two files in that subdirectory inside of it. Get rid of this welcome page. All right, so you can see here in the Explorer that we have our program.cs, our hello world CS proj, and our OBJ or object folder. I'm going to select the CS proj. There's nothing really all that mysterious about it. You can see when I select that file and view it in the middle area, since this is the first time I've opened a file of this type in Visual Studio Code, it pops up and wants to install an extension. I'm not going to do that for now. Let's save that for later. We'll talk about that later. But this file type, a CS project uses a file format called XML or Extensible Markup Language, and it has some settings like what type of file, what version of the .NET Core API should be using, things of that nature. We should never need to touch this file at least not at first. All right, so let's just close that down. The only thing we're really interested in is the program.cs file. This is where we'll actually write all of our code, and we'll do that like dozens, if not hundreds of times over the next 100 videos or so. So first thing I want you to do is just read through this code briefly, take a moment, pause the video, and you can see there's some words that look like English words, and then some that are made up words, and then some that are abbreviated words. But take a look and tell me what you think that this program will do. Now, we'll run this program in the next video, but just look for now and see if you can deduce some things about what this does simply from this boilerplate template code. All right, so hold on to that theory. And then in the next video, we'll actually build and run the application. All right, so we'll see you there. Thanks.